All right, so we have been talking about credit, and we talked, when we first started talking about credit, we've talked about the different types of credit, and we've gone through a few of them. The last major one that we're going to talk about are credit cards. Okay? Credit cards can get really, really complicated. But basically, if you have a rough idea of a few things, if you're going to be getting a credit card, and many of you will be getting a credit card in the not too distant future, there's a few things that you want to look at in order to make a good decision as to what would be a good credit card for you. Okay? Because, well, I'll just talk about the components. Three big components that we'll talk about: interest rates. Okay? I mean, every credit card you get charged an interest rate, but they may do it differently. First of all, they may charge you a different interest rate than, say, another credit card company, or say a retail sales company that has their own credit card. Like, I mean, you can get, the Bay has their own credit cards, right? And then you have sort of the big credit cards like Visa and MasterCard and American Express. And they all have different interest rates. And also you want to look at are the, what interest-free periods do you get? Because many credit cards, not all, when you make a purchase, you get an interest-free period. So for me, I'm trying to think of my Visa. My credit card statements are usually around the 15th, the middle of the month. So if I make a credit card purchase on, say, October 16th, I won't get charged interest, or I won't have to pay it until the next statement, which comes out in November. Okay? Which means that I get an interest-free period. And usually they could be like 21 days, they could be 30 days. So that's something that you want to look at. They don't charge you interest in that period, but as soon as that period's up, they'll start charging you on the interest from the day you purchased it. Not from the day the interest period is up, from the day that you purchased it. And that can get awfully expensive in terms of interest that you pay. A lot of credit cards, you can withdraw cash from them. Like you'll get it, you could take it into a bank and you could put it into the machine and enter your PIN number and you can draw out cash from it. Those kind of credit cards, you get charged interest on it right away. There's no interest-free period. It's like taking out a mini loan. Okay. So interest-free period and interest rates. Obviously, the lower the interest rate, the better, but it may not make a difference, the interest rate, if you plan on always paying your bill by the statement dates or by the due dates. I mean, that's what I do. So I never carry a balance on a credit card. I always make sure that I can pay off everything. So really the interest rate is irrelevant to me because I pay off, I'll never pay any interest. However, if I can't do that, if I'm in a situation where I can only pay part of it off, then you want to look at, okay, something with a lower interest rate. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So if I bought, like I said, mine is mid-month. So if I bought something, say October 13th, it's going to appear on my statement for the end of October. I have to pay it by the end of October, or usually beginning of November. If I don't pay the whole thing off, then I've now carried a balance on that charge. Benefits. A lot of cards offer benefits. I mean, my card, my Visa offers cashback dollars. I think it's 1%. So they'll calculate my statement, how much I owe, and in a certain period, and then they'll take 1% of that, and then I get it for cashback. I can use it to pay off I just usually leave it for a few months and then it builds up to maybe around $100, and then I just pay it off as part of my payment. So it knocks it off a little bit. Travel miles you can get, air miles, okay? Credit cards are joined with stores so that you can get discounts from items from that store. And basically you want to ask yourself, you know, is there a cost to the benefit of the card? And we'll talk about that in a second with annual fees. And if there is a cost, is it worth it to me? You know, like if you never use the benefit, then obviously it's not worth it for you. And then annual fees. Many credit cards are free. Okay? Some come with annual fees. And those annual fees that you pay, they may give you discounts on certain items. They may give you travel miles, more travel miles than say other credit cards would give you. What else could they give you? They could give you a lower interest rate. And some of these annual fees, I mean, they can run from as little as $12 to as much as $350 a year, which means that there must be a lot of perks to that card. Sometimes the annual fee can be waived, depending on if you're a good customer or not. I bank with with TD, and the TD card I have normally has an annual fee of $100 and something, but because I'm a good customer and I invest with them, they waive my annual fee every year. So that's some, you know, it all varies. It can all get really complicated. So here, like when you get a credit card, this next page, if you look at this one on yours, this is just a summary. If you want all the details, they'll give you a booklet like that has 20 to 30 pages in it, dealing with all sorts of situations. Nobody's going to read all that. So this is just sort of a basic summary here. It tells you things in general about what the interest rates are, what the interest-free period is, how they charge interest, what the minimum payment is. Because if you owe on a statement, they'll either take 3% of what you owe or $10, whichever is more. That'll be how much, that'll be your minimum payment. And then, yeah, foreign currency conversions, annual fees, other fees, so that if you're doing transactions at other ATMs, lots of details to them. But like I said, for our purposes, because we don't want to get too into the weeds here. For our purposes, we want to look at things like interest rates, annual fees, and benefits. And then we want an idea basically of how interest is calculated. So let's just look at a couple of examples where we would. Kellen is getting a credit card now that he's turned 18. Both credit cards he's comparing offer a 21-day interest-free period. MYZA has a credit card with no annual fee, but an interest rate of 26%. Victory Card offers a card with an annual fee of $20, but only an interest rate of 16%. Kellen plans to carry a balance. That means that he's not going to be paying off all of what he owes by the due dates. Which one do you think he should choose? The Victory? Because? Yeah, it's a lower interest rate. Like, even though it has an annual fee of $20, if he's going to be carrying a balance, that balance is probably going to be more than $20 that he's carrying. So yeah, so we would probably want to say he should go because he's carrying a balance with the Victory Card. So the Victory Card, because he's carrying a balance, or because he plans to carry a balance. Another example, Emmett is getting a credit card. He's comparing two credit card companies. He sees they both do not offer an interest-free period. The interest rate is 20% for each. Both cards have a benefit plan to collect points from movies. MYZA charges $15 annually. Canadian Direct charges $25 annually. If Emmett usually spends 20 bucks going to the movies, which credit card would be a better choice? Yeah. I mean, how much he spends going to the movies, is that really relevant? No, not in this case, because the cards are exactly the same except for the interest rate. Okay, they both collect points for movies. So we would say MYZA because they're both the same. Except MYZA has a lower interest rate. It doesn't matter whether he carries his balance or not. Okay, so what are some of the basic calculations they do when they're, because like credit cards, they can get, like I said, they can get very complicated. They calculate interest based on every item that you buy, okay? From the time that you buy it and whether you have actually paid it off. Because if you haven't paid it off, whatever's remaining, they start charging you interest on. So ideally, I mean, you want to pay the balance by the due date so you don't have to pay interest, okay? Most companies, and like this one that had the example that I gave you of all the different components of the credit card, had determination of interest, was using a simple daily interest rate, okay? So it'd be the number of days divided by 365 times your interest rate times how much you owe. Because we know the simple interest formula. So let's look at a couple of examples. So on January 5th, because these dates matter, Minnie makes a purchase of $400 on her credit card. The purchase appears on her monthly statement issued January 20th. She does not pay for the purchase by the due date indicated on the January statement. Her next monthly statement is issued February 20th. Calculate the interest added to her February statement for this purpose. And this bank charges her for the credit card an annual interest rate of 21%. So for her new balance, this is basically what we want to do. That's the wrong page here. Or sorry, we don't need to do that. I shouldn't say new balance. We're going to use this formula to calculate her interest. So P, well, it's $400 because she didn't pay that. The rate of interest is 21%, but we need to change that to decimal so we get 0.21. The time, we need to figure out the number of days and divide that by 365. Because remember, time is always expressed in years. So we got to figure out how many days are there from when she bought it, January 5th, to her next monthly statement, which is issued February 20th. So we need to figure out the days from January 5th to February 20th. Well, let's split it up. How many days are in January? 31. How many days are from January 5th, including the 5th, to January 31st? From the 5th to the 31st. But because we're including the 5th, we add 1. So it's 27. Okay? Because if you think about it, like how many days are there from January 5th to 6th? If you include both. 6 minus 5 plus 1. So to figure out the number of days from January 25th to 31st, 31 minus 5 plus 1. So there's 27 days in January she needs to pay. And then this one's easier. How many days from February 1st to 20th? 20. So it's a total of 47 days she's going to get charged interest on. All because she didn't pay by the due date. And her interest starts getting calculated back to the date that she bought it. So it's going to be 400 times 0.21 times 47 over 365. And that interest will work out to 1082. Just on that one item. I mean, what happens if she bought other stuff? There could be other interest calculations. And if she bought other stuff, what happens if she didn't pay by the due date? It can spiral out of control. Let's have a look at another one. Brigitte makes a purchase for $350 on her credit card on June 3rd. The purchase appears on the monthly statement issued June 25th. But she does not pay for the purchase by the due date on the June statement. So if it's issued on the 25th, the due date will be a little bit after that, okay? And then the next monthly statement is issued on July 25th. What is the interest added to her bill for this purpose if the annual interest rate is 18% and she has an interest-free period of 30 days? Well, this is the thing. Remember, you got an interest-free period as long as you pay it by when the interest-free period is up. Did she? So this becomes irrelevant because she didn't pay in time. If she would have paid in time, she would have had that interest period. She wouldn't have been charged anything and life would have been great. So again, to calculate our interest, we're going to use a simple interest rate based on a daily interest. So here our principal is $350. Our interest rate is 18% as a decimal, 0.18. And our time, we have to figure out the number of days over 365. And that will be the number of days from June 3rd to July 25th. So again, split it up month by month. 30 days in June. So how many days from June 3rd to June 30th inclusive? 28. How many days from July 5th, 1st to 25th? 25, so 28 plus 25. She gets charged 53 days worth of interest, or daily interest for 53 days. So it's going to be 350 times 0.18 times 53 over 365. And this is going to work out to $9.15. So notice that and this just says down here, we just did a couple of examples based on single items that somebody purchased on a credit card. Well, people normally purchase multiple items. Like I use my credit card to purchase dog food, and then I use it to purchase gas, and I use it to purchase daycare for my dog. I only use it for certain things. So all of those are on different dates. So if I don't pay by the due dates, all of those things, then it starts to get complicated how much, because they got to do it for each individual item. And we're not going to do that in this course. That's just too much. But you get an idea of what kind of interest you can get charged on a single item. Imagine you're charging more than one thing. The interest builds up. Okay. And we use the simple interest formula. So we're going to keep it simple to things like this, where you'll be just told the interest. So William's monthly statement shows a previous balance of $963.45. It also indicates that during the month, he made a payment of $500, but then also purchased goods totaling $626.95. So they went through all of his items and all of the dates and stuff like that, and they calculated all of his interest to work out to $1,750. All we want to do is calculate his new balance. So to calculate his new balance, we take his previous balance. Subtract away any payments he added, or he made. Add any purchases, additional purchases he made, and add the interest. That's basically how we're going to calculate his new balance. So he started with $963.45. He made a payment of $500, which took his balance down. But then during that time, he also purchased $626.95 worth of goods. So this guy's carrying a balance. So he gets charged interest of $1,750. And then basically we just have to calculate that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Should be 4 or 5. Thank you. And that works out to $1,107.90. Now you'll get told what your new balance is, but then they'll also tell you too, they want a minimum monthly payment. And like we had on that sample one earlier in this lesson, minimum monthly payment can be, it's usually $10 or 3 to 5% of whatever your balance is, whichever is greater. So in this example, with this credit card, it's going to be 5% of the ending balance or $10, whichever is greater. So we want to calculate his minimum monthly payment. Well, we got to figure out 5% of $1,107.90. So how do we do that? Well, we go 0.05 times 1107.90. And we get $55.40. which is bigger than 10 bucks. So this, because it's larger than $10, is his minimum monthly payment. And finally, what's the consequences if this guy, if he decides only to pay the minimum monthly balance? Remember, he owes just over 1,100 bucks. He manages to pay to 55.40. What's the consequences of only paying the minimum? Interest. Okay, he's going to get charged more interest, and that can spiral out of control. So just at the bottom of this page, you can see that if you only use the minimum monthly payment, it can take a long time to pay off a credit card. And some credit cards actually will tell you on the statement, if you only did the minimum monthly payment, how long it would take for you to pay off, assuming you didn't make any new purchases. So like if you had a $3,000 balance on a credit card, it may say on your statement, it's going to take you 17 years to pay this off if you only pay the minimum monthly payment, which when you're paying for other stuff can be a pain. And then just to wrap up on credit cards, you want to make sure you protect them, right? You want to make sure that you check them, that when you get to your statements, that everything that appears as charges on your statement, you actually purchase, because you never know. And like that happened to me. Somebody bought an Amazon membership in the States. Somehow they got my credit card. So on my statement, I see I see a charge of 160 bucks. And I'm like, what's this? I don't pay this at all. So I contacted my bank right away. They investigate, returned the money to me, canceled my credit card, and gave me a new one right away. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that when you have that. Whatever you're charging is what's appearing on your statements.
What if the bank doesn't believe you?
They might, then you won't get your money back. If like they'll do an investigation, and usually they will. It'll be a good outcome. Okay. But if you do, they'll probably figure it out. That's the thing. And then just a couple of points here about protecting your credit card. Okay. Basically, you don't want anybody getting, even though there's other things like, it's not just your credit card number. Every credit card has an expiry date. Every credit card has a CVC number. What does that mean? Verification code, card verification code. It's like a 3-digit number. So sometimes if you do, and I have given credit card information over the phone if I felt that it's secure. Don't shake your head at me. But the big thing is the CVC number, and those don't appear on receipts. Okay.